This is like a really impromptu video, so it might lack a lot of structure. Hi guys, it's Catherine, and today I'm going to be sharing with you all books that I read before Booktube. This is almost like book reviews of books that I read before Booktube because I obviously haven't really talked about them on my channel before, but not completely because I have read them like a very long time ago, so I will forget a lot of things about them, but I still wanted to just talk about them and share them with you guys. This won't be like books from like way before, but these are books that were like in the throes of like finally getting into reading that I loved or hate. I don't really know. I don't know what books I'm going to talk about yet because I'm just going to look through my Kindle because I read most of my books on my Kindle. And I'm just going to share with you guys what I think about them. So these are all books that I read before summer of 2016 because that is when I started my Booktube adventure. The first one that I want to talk about, because this was right before I started Booktube, right before I even found out what Booktube was, but it is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I read the first two books, Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, and I enjoyed them both. I'm so glad that I read them before Booktube. Oh, and I should mention, all of my books, like how I found them, like I didn't know that young adult was a genre. Like I couldn't figure out what like the genre books that I like, so I always had a hard time finding books. But Kindle like has like a recommended like picks for you, so that's how I found it. But anyways, Throne of Glass. I read the first book and I really enjoyed it. Like I often am just like sitting doing nothing and then like I think about like a random scene. I'm like, what book is that from? And I often find that it's from Throne of Glass, which is so random. I feel like they have a lot of like stereotypical like YA tropes in it. But anyways, I enjoyed Throne of Glass. I enjoyed the first book. I didn't have a lot of experience with a lot of fantasy books as of then, I feel like, or at least I don't have the experience that I have now with all these different fantasy books that I've read because of Booktube. So I feel like if I read it now, I would have an overwhelming pressure upon me, and plus maybe I wouldn't like it as much as I did then. Who knows? But I read the first book, enjoyed it. Read the second book, things happened that I was like, yes, thank God. And then she ruined it all in the end. So I was just like, I need to take a break from this. And I feel like this may be a little bit spoilery, I don't know. But I hate when books change scenery. I don't know, I just hate that because I feel like I spent so much of my time getting to know this one setting, and now you're just gonna rip it all away from me and like start anew. Like, no thanks. I mean, like a lot of books do that, but like it's just something like at the time that I was like, I don't feel like dealing with that right now. So I didn't pick up the third book. And so now that I'm like in Booktube and like hear about it like literally all the time, a lot of people say that the first two books are a little like irrelevant, like they have nothing to do with where the story is now. And I just really don't have any interest in continuing on with the series. Like it's so long. I feel like I don't really feel like it. And like there are no characters in the series that I'm like, oh my God, I wanna know what happens to them. So that's also like why I don't really care if I read it or not. So I feel like we must talk about Vampire Academy because this is one of my favorite series of all time. Maybe if I read it for the first time now, I definitely would not read it if I hadn't read it yet because there's a love triangle in it. But I still freaking love this book. I read all of them on this very Kindle upstairs on the third floor in a hammock. That's where I read it. I would come home from school, go upstairs in my hammock and read until it got dark, or my dad was like, Katie, what are you doing outside? The sandflies are gonna come out here, you're gonna complain about being bitten all over. I know, it's rough out here, all right? But it was just such a good time. Like I read it at the perfect book maturity. That just sounds wrong, I don't know. And I really love the books. They like took up a really big portion of my life. Like I started them at the end of one year and then like throughout the whole next year because it's like two series because it has a spin-off series called Bloodlines. And so yeah, how I started reading Vampire Academy is because I watched the movie 3 bazillion times. Like honestly, I've watched the movie so many times, especially in the month of August, like one summer. And I remember my friends came over and I was like, let's watch it. And they were like, But I was like, you better watch this movie because I love it so much. And so that's why I read the book. I really love Rose. I feel like it was finally a character that I could identify with a little bit because she had brown hair and that's really it. Like I'm never gonna see myself in a book and I don't care. Like people are like, oh, I'm never gonna be represented in a book. And like I get it, like there should be more diversity in books, blah, blah, blah. But I just don't care. Like you're never, I'm special, all right? Okay, I'm joking, all right? But I just know, like I've never had to come to terms with not finding myself in a book. I felt like Rose was the first one that I ever was like, I want to be like you. We've got brown hair and I could definitely be you. Like, this is young me thinking, all right? Yeah, loved Vampire Academy. I wasn't completely sold on Bloodlines at first because it was like, I want Rose, I want Dimitri. Oh yeah, and Lissa, but mainly Rose and Dimitri, yeah. This was before I knew that I had a burning hatred for love triangles, yep. The next book that I want to talk about is The Maze Runner by James Dashner. I'd wanted to read this book eons before the movie came out, and I totally forgot about it. And finally when I saw the movies coming out, I was like, I'm gonna read it now. And so I did, and I enjoyed it. A lot of people don't like it, but again, I feel like this is before I had a lot of experience with different types of like dystopian writing, or, you know, like how good books sound. So I really enjoyed this book when I read it. I thought the concept was really cool with the maze. I shipped Albie and the other dude. I don't remember what their names are, but I shipped those two dudes so hard. But things had to go get ruined, so. I only didn't finish this series because I had to look up spoilers. This was like during my era of I need spoilers to continue a book. So I looked up spoilers for the next book because I needed to know if my favorite character, you know, things, yeah. And so I was like, yeah, no, I can't finish this series, yeah. The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I feel like nobody really knows that I've read this, but my friend read it in like a night and she was like, read it. So I read it and it was really, really good. I really loved it. I really loved the movie as well, but the book is, oh my God, that frightened me so hard. There's just some dude on a motorcycle just standing on his motorcycle, like standing in the middle of the road. Perks of Being a Wallflower. I'm very grateful for this book existing because it taught me a lot and showed me the hipster side of contemporary. I said I wouldn't really talk about it, but I'm gonna do it anyways. The Fault in Our Stars, I read back then. This was before the movie, far before we even knew a movie was coming out. And I read it and I loved it. I read it once, I loved it. And I read it again for, why would you do that? And I had massive headache the second time I read the book, because crying, obviously. And then when the movie came out, and I was like really into it, I was like really into like the Tumblr fandom of it, and then when the movie came out, I like distanced myself from it, like so hard, like go, like I didn't read that book. I mean, like I never told somebody that I didn't read it. I was just always like, I read it before the movie, all right? This was like in the full throes of like hipster Katie, who was like, read it before the movie, you fake fan. But it just like blew up and everybody read it and like loved it, and I was like, no, it's my book, I loved it, I know the true love of it. Okay, I admit it, we've all felt that way. Like, this is my book. Like, you're being fake. You only watched the movie, or you only read the book because of it. I mean, like, obviously I read books because of the movie, but I felt like this was like a book for me and the people that read it before the movie. And that was like my first experience with like, I read the book before the movie in your face. I don't know, that sounds like really terrible, but this was like young me before I like saw the world or whatever. I mean, like, obviously now I don't think those things. I just don't read the book at all if the movie is coming out. Like, I don't know why. If like there's a book that I really want to read and then I found out the movie's coming out, I'm like, I don't know why. It's just something that I do. It's weird. The next book that I want to talk about, I don't ever talk about this on my channel, I feel like, which is really weird because I really like this book, but it is Legend by Marie Lu. I read this book in like 2 days. It was the first book that I ever read so quickly, proud of myself. And I read it on this very Kindle, part 394, and I really, really loved it. It was like the beginning of my dystopian phase, and it was so good. I always think about like, oh, if there was ever a movie to come out, like which character could I play from like any of the books that I read? And it was always Legend, because she doesn't really have like clear descriptors. And at first I thought she was kind of like, had like Asian blood in her, but then when the comics or the graphic novels came out for it, I'm like, dude, I could be her. Like, I am her. Let me be her. If there's a movie, I could freaking be her. She has like long hair, doesn't she? And then because that one scene where she has like this really like long ponytail or something that it says, I don't know, that's pretty random, but like I had wanted to be her if a movie came out. But yeah, I really enjoyed Legend. I didn't read Prodigy because my dad had gone on a trip to the States, and so I was like, bring me back Prodigy. So I like read something while I waited, and by the time he brought Prodigy back, I didn't really feel like reading. I was reading something else, and so it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back. I tried to start reading it a couple of times, but I just never actually got into it. And then I think after Champion came out and like I saw it, I was like, hey, I forgot about that series. And so I went and looked up spoilers, because again, spoiler queen, and I was like, nah, there's a love triangle or something. That was during my time when I was like, I fucking hate love triangles. I never curse on my channel because I feel like my family will see this and then I'll be like, ah, awkward. awkward. But yeah, point is, I don't think I'll ever finish this series. So yeah. So I'm gonna talk about one more book before I just read off like books that I have read, just so it's out there in the universe so that you guys may, if you're interested, you know. But it is from 2013, so there are some books like The Hunger Games that I haven't like recorded. I've kept these pages of books that I read in whatever year since 2013. It's 2017. A lot of times I'm like, wow, past self, you are so good at life. But I've kept these ever since, and I'm so proud of myself. So this has been 5 years in the making, and this year is the first year that I've ever had to write on the back of the page. Wow. But the last book I'm going to talk about in depth is The 100 by, crap, I forgot, Cass Morgan. This book I read because I was watching the show. I knew that the book was really different than the show. I don't know how I knew that, but I just knew. I really like the book for what it is, separately from the show. It's a dystopian book. Like, don't walk into it expecting the show, because the show does a terrible job with basing it off the book. Like, honestly, I don't know what it's doing, all right? But hashtag Bellark for life.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Show version, obviously, I'm talking about. But yeah, I read The 100. I really enjoyed it. I can't remember too much of what I thought about it, but I know I read it like 3 summers ago, because summer's done, so now it can count as a summer. Wow, crazy. And I have the next 2 books, and there's a 4th book coming out. I thought it was just gonna be a trilogy, but it's still going. But I haven't read any of the other books, and since I started Booktube, I've kept meaning to like pick them up again, but I just haven't got around to them. But I really do want to finish the rest of the series, or what's out of it so far. I don't know how many books are going to be in the series, but yeah. The lighting is really gone in this video, I'm very sorry, but it's like overcast and it's kind of late, but the overcast is mostly to blame. But yes, let us go through my very long list. So obviously we have The Hunger Games, Maximum Ride, Witch and Wizard. I think those are all the other ones. I can't remember. Divergent, I read Divergent and Insurgent, didn't finish Elysian. Artemis Fowl, I read the 1st and 2nd book. The Percy Jackson series, I've read all of them, except the newest Trials of Apollo book, which technically counts as all together. I read Vampire Kisses. It was my sister's book, and I had nothing to read, so I read that, and it's very bad, all right? But I read the whole thing because I was like, it's so bad that it's good. No, it's not good. That's not the right word for it. Like Famous in Love, if you ever seen that TV show, it's so bad that it's like good, you know? Do you understand? I hope you do. Beautiful Creatures, I read because I watched the movie and I really like the movie, but it's very different from the movie. The Scorpio Races, The Book Thief, for The Winter People. Wow, I totally forgot I read that. I feel like now that I think about it, I feel like it's kind of a Vasilisa the Beautiful kind of retelling, but almost just like a couple elements are taken from that, but it's kind of a bad book that's kind of good, you know? Like, it's enjoyable for like a younger reader, I feel like, and it's by Rebecca Alpurdy. I read the House of Night book, the first one. I enjoyed the first book, it was good enough, and then I remembered that my friend had already read it and told me all about it, and I was like, no thank you at all, because I hate love triangles with a burning passion, and like every review says that it just goes downhill so hard. Nosedive. The Witch Hunter, which I have talked about on my channel because I read The Kingslayer after I started Booktube. The Color Purple as well. Kin of Kings, I accidentally read a spin-off series to another series. Pride and Prejudice. Me and Earl and Dying Girl. See, I finished Throne of Glass May 22nd, so that was right before I started Booktube. I finished Crown of Midnight June 30th, so after June 30th is when I started looking into Booktube. And July 16th was the day that I made my Booktube channel and posted my first ever video. This has probably been a very long video, but if you guys have stuck around this long, thank you guys so much for watching. Now you guys know most of the books that I've ever read. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I'll try to get to them. Sometimes I forget, but I do see them all. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to check out my social media, which are always linked down below. I do believe I have all these books on my Goodreads, but you know, like, not everybody likes to look through Goodreads. Like, I mean, I don't. And sorry it's such dark lighting, but just rain clouds are coming at me. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye!
I was yours on Sunday while we watched the children play. We fell deep in love again, like we always do.